The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys. They let us think that we're big boys. They let us make a lot of noise, but women rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. For you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Oh, the deeper I fall.
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
The password is...
All right.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Nephew. Bye-bye.
Yeah, just please take your seat on my list. We're with the entrance. It's time for pickup. Start. 2, 1. Boost to ignition and lift off.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to a new week of Spaced Out Radio Tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. It's great to have you along for the ride on this Monday, August 5th, 14th, Tuesday, August 15th. If you're on the East Coast or across the pond, hope you had a great day and night as we are live right here in the Great White North on top of the very smoky mountains of central British Columbia as we are here 7 days a week. Let's welcome in everyone listening in on our terrestrial stations. WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well in New Orleans on 107.7 FM, the United Public Radio Network, and spread around 160 countries around the world. We're also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. If you like our music, get your horns up and rock with us to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Now, if you're a social media junkie like I am, do me a favor. Follow me on Twitter. At Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like. Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can find me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download our shows from iTunes. Make sure you subscribe to that as well. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, which we will get into momentarily. Now, if you want to take part in this show, you got to sign into one of our chat rooms, either on Revolution Radio, Spreaker, the UPRN chat room, or on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter, use the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. I will get to your questions and comments in there as well. Now, if you head to our website for just $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. And as of right now, pick up a t-shirt, stickers, posters at our Spaced Out Radio store. You can read up on the encounter online. And you can check out my latest blog as well. If you've had a sighting or an experience you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. We got some great video viewing as well from Tim Doyle and his UFO Seekers videos, as well as Lesley Mitchell Clarke's Contactee. Now, a good friend of this show is back, Lesley Mitchell Clarke, whom I just mentioned. She is our resident hypnotherapist and bastion for information when it comes to all things extraterrestrial. By the way, Lesley, that's the first time I've used the word bastion in my intro. So tonight, we are literally running on no script. As Lesley says, we can go wherever we want to go tonight, so we're getting a little bit of everything from the purpose of hypnotherapy when it comes to those who are having any sort of paranormal contact to those who she's guiding through ET experiences. Lesley also hosts a show called Contactee, which can be viewed on our website, spacedoutradio.com. As well, I will admit, her parent company, the one that she runs, LMC Media, is also helping us as a show expand our attention across North America. But it's the love and learning of helping contactees that continues to drive Lesley. The stories she has heard from everyone, from professionals to the most blue-collar of people regarding alien contact and abduction. We are getting it into it all tonight. Lesley Mitchell Clarke, always a special pleasure to have you on the show. How are you?
Oh, Dave, thank you so much, and thank you for that absolutely lovely introduction. As you know, there's very few things I like better than chatting with you on your wonderful program, and I especially like the fact that we're not really, confined to any particular stream. We can go where we wish to, and I hope that your wonderful space travelers out there in Cyberland and everywhere else will be comfortable to just come up with the questions that they want answered, or anything for that matter. Stories. I'd love to hear from all of them, as I know you would too.
You know what? Me too. And you know what? The chat room's looking at them right now. It's a packed house everywhere. Twitter is packed as well with our regulars in there, so it's good to see everybody here on a Monday night. What have you been up to lately? Because I know you work so many jobs. You dealt with some health problems last month. Yeah. I thought I didn't have enough hours in the day. How do you do it?
Well, I don't know. It must be some type of, astrological configuration. I'm not really sure, but it sounds a little more hectic than it actually is. My primary job, my primary task is of certainly working with individuals as a hypnotherapist, and I'm based out of Toronto, although I do go back and forth to Los Angeles, where I have a number of clients who are in the entertainment business, and so I basically have just been, helping people to not only feel better about themselves, but to, possibly explore past life memories. And of course, I have, as always, had a number of people coming to me who have either had, experiences of high strangeness, or things have happened where they cannot connect the dots. They have odd feelings, marks, missing memories, missing time, and so it's been a little bit of all that, and hopefully getting ready for my first book to come out before Christmas, which is a wonderful, I guess I would have to call it a case study, because it concentrates on one particular experiencer's process, from the first time he came to see me, to recall memories, to where he is in present day, which is a college professor. So there you go. So a lot of stuff going on, and I'm really looking forward to working in great synchronicity with Spaced Out Radio and getting the word out that this is the place to be 7 nights a week.
Well, we are efforting, and I use that word strongly, efforting to make a push here. For a lot of people who don't know, and I'll actually make this announcement on air, sometimes life gets to you, and I have literally had to take 3 months off from my daytime job in order to start handling some of my stress. I've been put on stress leave by the very kind gentleman that I work for, and yes, I have been guaranteed a job, whether it's 3 months or 6 months, however long it takes. So a lot of people will say, geez, if you're on stress leave, what are you doing for the show? I've actually gone to a doctor, and he says, what are you doing that is positive right now? And I told him about doing the radio show, and he actually said to me, well, keep doing it.
Yeah.
He goes, I don't think you need any type of narcotics right now or prescription medicine to help with my depression, my anxiety, and everything that I'm going through with stress. He goes, as long as you have something to put your focus on, stick to that. So over the next few months, we are going to be, along with you, Lesley, and Kim Gandy, and Everett Thiemer, we're going to be making a very, very strong push in order to get Spaced Out Radio up recognized with the bigger name shows, as us being the next one. And I got to tell you, I want to thank you publicly for, doing what you are doing to help us out, because a lot of people who have a company like yours, it's easy to stray away from, make work projects like this is, but you jumped in both feet. Maybe explain to our audience why you did that.
Well, I think that, the luxury that I have right now, because my media company is very established, and I really just take on things that I'm interested in or love or want to do for one reason or another. Maybe there's a charitable aspect. And of course, in the case here, we're talking about something and the dissemination of information, aiding in disclosure, all of that I deeply, deeply believe in and deeply support. So it is my pleasure to be able to direct my energy somewhere that is so incredibly important to me, and that's a great thing. So that's what we're going to do. LMC Media, my other identity, is behind SOR, and we're going to keep pushing until we get where you need to be, Dave.
Well, I appreciate that. And Lesley, you've run the gamut. You're one of these people who's done the circuit from the podcasts and lower blog shows to, the granddaddy, which a lot of people will say is not anymore, but that's for them to choose. But in our industry, the granddaddy is still coast to coast. When you've gone top to bottom like you have, because you have to get your message out, what do you see is the biggest issue surrounding the popularity of paranormal media right now?
Well, I think part of the issue is there are rather a glut of programs and radio programs, both done visually via Skype or some other format, that are substandard. And so the average person, I think, can become confused or turned off, if they happen to tune into something that either is not insightful or the person being interviewed doesn't seem to know what they're talking about. So there's a lot of confusion. I mean, it's really the same thing that goes on in the music industry. Once the big record labels destabilized, then there was a glut of a product, but most of that product, was terrible stuff that people were making in their basements. So it's not unlike that in all media, radio, film, whatever. There's a glut of stuff out there, but more than ever, it's important to separate the wheat from the chaff. So that's the challenge, and I think that the most efficient way to do that is simply to make a plan and have your product exposed to the correct target audience under all the right circumstances. I'm not even sure that purchasing print information is very effective anymore for either music or radio programs or what have you. But I think what we're doing now with both Contactee and also with Spaced Out Radio is a consistent regular media outreach, which means regular media releases that preview what's coming in the next month, a real strong presence on Facebook and other social media, which you have, Dave. That's one of the great things about Spaced Out Radio. And so it's the consistency, I think. With the consistency, people are going to, just like with hypnosis, repetition is part of how it works. The more that people even hear the name or see the name Spaced Out Radio, the more our numbers are going to increase and the message will be, global.
Do you believe then that with the advent of online radio that we have seen too much of an oversaturation? I've asked that question of a lot of people, and it seems to be a mixed bag. Some will say that the more is better. Others will say, well, it has depleted listenership from those who are trying to create quality for people to listen to.
I'd have to go, with option B. And as I said, I think, people often have to dig through a lot of, substandard programming to get to something that's vital and speaks to them, because there is this glut. And certainly when we first had Contact Radio on Blog Talk Radio, well, that's really a nightmare because it's very difficult for people to find no matter, what you do. There are always technical problems. I mean, I've had so many embarrassing technical problems where I have somebody really of high caliber on the phone and, the whole system just goes down. So that was always, fraught with problems. And I'm not altogether unsure that there isn't some monitoring going on with the type of programming, Dave, that you do, and also that George Norrie does, and other notable people. It would always seem to me that when I had a very, shall we say, extra controversial guest on Contact, say, let's say Randy Kramer, for instance, who, as you know, is a whistleblower who has a lot of information about the Black Ops space programs on Mars and the Moon and elsewhere, and he was a participant. So it seems that whenever we try to have him on the show, things happen that we've never seen before. So I have to wonder. I mean, what do you think, Dave? Is there any pattern to? And I don't mean to be paranoid because I'm not. But is there any pattern to, say, interference or technical snafus that happens when you have maybe someone who's speaking about more sensitive subject matter?
I thought we had a lot of it happen on Blog Talk Radio, but the problem that I saw with Blog Talk Radio when we started off there, and this is why I couldn't get off there fast enough, was the fact that they had a real problem with hackers getting into their system. And literally they would take over a studio where you would have to shut down your show for the night and then get a hold of Blog Talk Radio. Sometimes you'd be down a night to 2 nights, sometimes 3, while they cleared all the IP addresses out of their system. And the funny part about it was BTR never took responsibility for that. Ever.
Never.
And I remember talking to people all the time about that, and they'd be, oh, well, we've never heard of this happening before. And I said, I just reported it 2 weeks ago. How could you say you've never heard of it? Yeah. Right? And it was ridiculous. Along with, I wanted this to be a talk show where we could have actually people call in, but the amount of trolls that would call in over there really soured me to that as well.
Oh, yeah, it was terrible. I remember many nights, I knew that some high school boys were calling in and just packing the switchboards, stuffing our little switchboards that we have on our virtual studios. So that, as you say, the trolls, the hackers, this was a consistent, ongoing problem, and it just eventually I just couldn't take it anymore. So that was the end. That was the end of the Blog Talk Radio. But imagine, look at how many shows, say, Blog Talk Radio had. I think it's, could it be something like 9,000? Is that, am I remembering that correctly?
I think around there, yes.
It's massive, and I know even though I sent out press releases and blah blah blah, people always had trouble finding the show, finding my show. It was a consistently it was an overly complicated system, I think. So there you go, and that's just that's a question of glut. And just like the music business, just like everything else, there are a lot of people making very substandard product in their basements or elsewhere and sticking it up there. And maybe they've got a clever graphic or a clever ad, so of course it looks like it's going to be, it promises more than it delivers, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. And when you're trying to build something, and I make no bones about it, we're trying to build a business here. We're trying to compensate for a lot of people's energy, a lot of people's time, and it's not just mine, it's mainly the listeners' time. Because if they don't make that emotional commitment to you, then you have nothing. And that's why I try and be very, very respectful of that. And, when a listener comes up to me, I got an email from a gentleman today who just found our show a few weeks ago. I went to his website. His name is Andrew, and he's a classic pianist. I actually went to his website that he tagged on his email, and I'm like, my God, is this guy talented? What the hell is he listening to Paranormal Radio for? But the whole point is, he said, I just found your show. I absolutely love it. However, I guess on Saturday night with Dave Cruz, who I absolutely love, our new guy on Saturday, his guest went a little bit political. And, with attention and everything, people are coming to our shows to stay away from politics. So we try not to hit it, but that was his critique, and I've heard it from other people as well. Yeah. So to try and find that balance between everything, when you have literally a couple hundred people in your chat rooms per night, and I'm saying every chat room, along with the listeners who aren't participating, but they're going to comment as well via email or some other way, it's so hard to find that balance. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. And, certainly, we all know where our hearts are at. Everyone that we engage with, their hearts are about, freedom and love. And if we can just try to if we can just try to give people a little break from the low vibration and the pessimism that is surrounding, all kinds of, public events. And, people are experiencing high degrees of anxiety, and I say this not only, as a person who is involved in paranormal issues, but just as a practicing therapist. People are stressed out. They are fearful. They are, unsure, and there's a lot of anxiety going. It's high anxiety, believe me, and I don't care, what side of the fence you're on politically. There are vibrations that can be felt. There are chaotic vibrations, all around us right now. A lot of chaos going on, and that makes people feel unsafe.
Well, that's why we bring in ghosts and aliens, so that way we can just worry about the ghosts and aliens and cryptid sightings and anything else absolutely out of the ordinary.
That's right.
I don't think I told my listeners this. I actually, a couple weeks ago, a friend of mine bought me and thank you to Kelly for that, bought me my first hypnotherapy session with a clinical hypnotherapist. And so I went in there, and she was asking me all the medical questions. I think the only thing she didn't ask was when my last colonoscopy was, which was okay. but I did have an answer for that too, and just in case. But the whole point was, she then started reading off a script of what to help put me under. And me being very spiritual, and I don't really talk too much about this side of me, but me being more on the spiritual side, I cleared it with my guides before she put it under. My guides were like, yeah, go for it. Yeah, absolutely. We're okay with that. And so she started putting me under, and I was out for about 10 minutes, so relaxed, seeing everything that she was seeing. And then all of a sudden, about 10, 15 minutes in, I hit this black wall where there was some sort of light coming through this black wall, and it was all blurry. It was all blurry. It was like an oval grayish white circle in this black wall, and my guides were all of a sudden, okay, we're done. We're out of here. Time to wake up. And I just shot up. And this beautiful lady who was trying to help me out to open up a little bit here, to try and take me back into some sort of regression or something, she goes, Dave, this really doesn't surprise me. I'm not insulted at all. She goes, you are on a much higher spiritual plane than the majority of my clients, and it doesn't surprise me that this isn't working for you. What would cause that?
Well, for one thing, I think probably, one of the things that's going on here is she probably doesn't have a big client base of spiritually aware people. As you said, she probably, as she said herself, she doesn't deal with aware people, every day. This is something a little unusual for her, whereas, it's something that I've sort of, always dealt with throughout my career. Now, it's possible to pull yourself out of trance at any time, because I know I've mentioned this before in the show, all hypnosis is really self-hypnosis. There is no such thing as the Manchurian Candidate type of syndrome, the mind control thing. Now, I'm not saying that there have not been horrific government programs that we've heard discussed on the show that didn't utilize some perverted hypnosis techniques in combination with hallucinogenics and other things. I'm not saying that doesn't occur. It's possible to fragment somebody's personality with the right mix of narcotics and psychological torture, basically. But I think what happened there is maybe you were getting near something. It could be possible that you were getting near something that you and your guides decided that you did not want to face at that time. And, that sometimes happens. And people either are pulled out by their guides or they pull themselves out, or however you want to think of it. It could have been something like that. It could have been, now, I myself, I don't really need to use scripts. And I suppose, and this sounds kind of odd, I guess, but the way I put someone into trance, it's sort of almost channeled. I kind of figure out how that person thinks, and I somehow know intuitively what kind of imagery is going to work for them. And I don't use a script. I look for the physical signs that people have moved into trance, and I have only a couple of times had that experience where someone pulled themselves out. So I think maybe, with all fairness to the very kind lady who was working with you, I think maybe, she was getting you under, and maybe there was something that you didn't really want to look at, and your guides decided that it wouldn't be right for you to look at it at that time. Does that resonate at all, Dave?
Could very well be. Could very well be. I was looking forward to it because I've never done it before. So I am kind of disappointed, but you know what? C'est la vie. If that's what's going to happen, that's what's going to happen, right? So,
well, just because it happened that time, Dave, doesn't mean it would happen again. You may have been in an anticipatory state where you had a high degree of, cortisol or maybe some adrenaline running around in your system. It may have been just a little challenging for her to get you under properly. And that isn't to say that it wouldn't be easy another time when you were in maybe when you knew what to expect and you were in maybe a more relaxed frame of mind.
Well, I will try it again one day. I don't know when, but I'm not closed-minded to the situation yet. I want to see if we can get this thing working on me, because I'm sure there's just a bag full of, mixed cereal in there that just needs to be processed, if we could put it politely that way. I was going to say something else, but we are on terrestrial radio.
Well, we're all carrying around a lot of stuff, like way too much stuff. And, what I do a lot of the time is I simply allow people to release things that they no longer need. And that can mean, relationships that no longer serve them. That can mean career changes. That can mean old hurts from childhood. And that can even mean hurts and horrible things from past lives that have carried over into this life, which is something that happens, all the time. I mean, if I can't find the reason, the kernel of truth, the reason that someone is having a specific problem, whether it's a physical problem or a psychological problem, that's usually a very good sign that the answer may lie in a past life.
Well, we will soon see. I don't know when it's going to happen again, but when it comes to hypnotherapy, can everybody go under? Or are there people that are just so wound up so tight, or they're so skeptical about it that there's just no way they can relax or let their mind just sail away?
Well, certainly some people are more receptive than others. And I would have to say that in my experience, initially we are taught, of course, when we're training to be hypnotherapists, we're taught that every psychologically normal person can be hypnotized. And by that statement, what we're talking about is someone who is not, schizophrenic or, suffering with some type of extreme bipolar situation or any other, mental illness. Now, I'm not talking about depression and anxiety and, the regular stuff that everybody deals with. So I think what happens in the realm of the general public is there's probably a big misunderstanding as to what, hypnosis actually is. And again, from, films and TV and other creative sources, I think many people have an idea that you're unconscious and not in control. And that, of course, is frightening. That's a frightening state of affairs if you feel that you've lost control and somebody is making you do stuff. So I think there's a belief that comes into play a lot of times. So before I ever, hypnotize anyone, I do my best to answer all of their questions and to allay any kinds of fears about being out of control or unconscious. Now, there are many states of consciousness, Dave, as you know, many levels of consciousness. I think anesthesiologists talk about, 74 of them or something, levels of asleep and awake. In contemporary Ericksonian hypnosis, just for the sake of simplicity, we talk about 6 levels of trance. Now, levels 5 and 6 are quite deep, and they're sometimes called hypnotic coma or the Esdale state. Now, personally, I only bring people to those deep levels if I am doing either a past life regression or some really in-depth pain management. So it's not something that I do, every day when someone comes to see me. Most people only need to get to what we call level 3. And level 3 is, it's so close to consciousness. In fact, if anyone out there, I'm sure many of the space travelers are also car drivers. So you may have had the experience where you're driving from point A to point B and you're thinking about stuff and your mind is elsewhere, and you arrive at your destination, sort of by automatic pilot, and you don't really have a clear memory of driving the car that distance. Well, we call that driving hypnosis, and that is also level 3. So that's as deep as a person needs to be receptive to hypnotic suggestions, and it's so close to consciousness. So, I guess I think there's a high level of fear that people can come in with, and I do everything I can to allay that fear before I ever start working with the induction process.
Do you find it works better with men or women?
There's no there is no what can I say? There's no clear difference in my opinion. I have equal amounts of clients of men and women. I think the main factor in how good a hypnotic subject someone is going to be is their ability to relax and to not be controlling. I think controlling people, whether they're male or female, have a harder time letting go. So it's not really a man-woman thing, but it is a controlling thing.
I want to get to a question from John at #SpacedOutRadio here, and he is saying, Lesley, aren't hypnotic suggestions implanting and changing memories, and isn't that a bad thing?
We don't change memories at all. Now, again, here we've got a little interesting sort of a sci-fi twist on what I do, but I used to say, my teacher, Georgina Cannon, used to say, if I could control anybody's mind, it would be Johnny Depp. She used to say, God bless her. But actually, we do not change people's memories, people's realities. If anything, we help them recover memories that may have been suppressed. Now, I think what we do in terms of suggestions are having to do with changing habits or behaviors. For instance, a very common suggestion, post-hypnotic suggestion that I will use, with just about everybody, I might say something like, every time you see the color blue, no matter where you are, what you're doing, what circumstance you're in, every time that you see the color blue, you will immediately become calm, relaxed, and peaceful for at least 8 hours. And then, my clients will tell me, boy, I've been walking around just blissed out, and I don't even know why. So, the post-hypnotic suggestions are meant to heal, to calm, to make people feel better. Now, I will use also things called triggers and anchors. A trigger would be like, say someone has just a garden variety type of issue. They're concerned about their weight, and they're eating too much food, and they're eating after dinner. So I will first suggest to them that they slow down eating. They become full after they eat half of their food on their plate. But then I will say, after dinner, as soon as you wash your hands or feel water on your hands, immediately you will be full and satisfied, and any desire for further food will completely disappear. So that would be a trigger. In other words, the water triggers the change in behavior, if you will. Mm-hmm. And none of these things will work if someone doesn't want them to. That's the key thing. Nothing, I could do anything. I could stand on my head. I could use, I could do anything, and nothing would elicit changes unless someone wants those changes. It is essential.
Well, I can tell you honestly, Taco Bell does that for me.
Yes.
I'm not going to lie. The minute I get into the United States, the first place I hit is Taco Bell.
I love Taco Bell.
And I just saying the two words, Taco Bell, my mouth gets watery.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, if you wanted to, if you came to me and you said, Lesley, I'm really trying to live healthier. I don't ever, want to eat Taco Bell again. I would use suggestions that would make you repulsed by Taco Bell, but you would have to want that.
Well, right now, all I want is a taco.
I don't blame you. I want one too. Damn it.
You know what? Let's just say hell with the show, and I'll meet. Let's meet somewhere in between. So we're looking. Let's see. You're in Toronto. I'm in British Columbia. So, what would be the halfway point? I think it'd be.
I know Chicago.
I was thinking North Dakota, but
okay, all right. I went to university in South Dakota, but then
okay.
I think we might be hard pressed even to find a Taco Bell there. But there you go. But yes, well, Dave, you know how advertising works. I mean, advertising is a form of hypnosis, and it works through repetition. Just like, I work through repetition, and you notice that at certain times of the day, certain demographics are targeted. Women who are maybe at home taking care of their kids are targeted with, housekeeping items. After the 11 o'clock news, dads are targeted with new car ads. On the weekends, all weekend, kids are targeted with toys and things that they have to have. We are really just we're all walking around in a light state of hypnosis. And kids more so than adults, which is why I don't believe in advertising to children. I think it's morally wrong. But there you go. And the ad agencies, the Madison Avenue guys, have always had people like me who walked on the dark side and worked with them and figured out how to trigger responses and operating in a subconscious and subliminal way. So, advertising is a form of hypnosis and repetition. And now, you can even see the colors of the Taco Bell building probably, and you will want a taco. Or, you know what I mean, Dave? It probably wouldn't take much seeing a picture of it. I know that's where I'm at, so.
Yeah, well, I've got the image in my head right now of a little chihuahua saying, "Yo quiero Taco Bell."
That's right. Yo quiero Taco Bell. Of course.
Exactly. But I will say this. I don't have a McDonald's in my small town either, my hick town that I live in. But I got to go out of town tomorrow. So I'm actually going to McDonald's tomorrow. So that'll make up for the Taco Bell. It won't be the same.
That'll help.
But,
well, once in a while, it's okay to treat ourselves. And yes, but there are people, there are poor souls who are absolutely addicted to carbohydrates and sugar, the way someone's addicted to heroin. And sometimes it's a life or death struggle. Their blood pressure's through the ceiling, and they're just going to cack if they don't lose weight. And, these are some of the most challenging things that I deal with. People who are addicted, deeply addicted to food. And, it's a real thing, Dave.
I notice the Pepsi cans surrounding me, so... Yes, you're making me bow my head in shame right now.
No shame. It's just like there's no crying in baseball. There's no shame in hypnosis.
I know. Okay. There is no crying in baseball.
No crying in baseball. No shame in hypnosis.
Absolutely. When you are going into hypnosis with someone, are they coming to you, Lesley, about what they need help with, or is it about you diagnosing them through the hypnosis on whatever comes out?
That's a very interesting question. I would say it's sort of a combination of both. Now, usually someone has a very specific reason for coming to hypnosis. I have a phobia of birds. I have insomnia. I'm smoking crack. Whatever it might be. Usually there is a very specific reason, but I'm kind of a little bit like a detective, because in order to treat whatever reason the client came to me for, I have to get to the origin of why this behavior is going on. So that does sometimes require a little, I wouldn't say digging around, but some intuitive feelings about what might be going on. But in hypnosis, we use a lot of something we call parts work, and it's very effective in getting to the core of an issue. And that is, we might say somebody comes in and they're afraid of men. It's a woman who's afraid of men, or tall men. She doesn't know why. Then I will put her under and I will talk to that part of her that has the fear of tall men and why. So sometimes in the process, things are revealed to the patient about themselves that they had absolutely no idea about. So they can come to me for one thing, and then in the process of treating that and going through the insight of different types of hypnosis, they become very self-aware of important things that they had never even thought about. And that can be true with talents too. I mean, I don't mean to just put a negative thing on that. When I talk about discovering new stuff, it can also be extremely positive. You discover kind of what you need to be happy.
A couple questions coming from our audience. We'll get to Tammy's question first in the chat room. She is asking, Lesley, does hypnosis work to rid oneself of chronic pain?
I do a lot of work in pain management. That's one of my special certifications, and because I do have a background as essentially a psychiatric nurse, and I'm very concerned with pain management, and we have gotten incredible results in dealing with chronic pain, particularly things like fibromyalgia, other mysterious things. We can help with MS. Essentially, you can talk to the nervous system and tell it to settle down in the same way that if someone's having allergies, you can talk to the circulatory system. You can talk to the white blood cells and tell them to calm down and stop, thinking everything is an enemy. So we have tremendous success in that. In treating pain, we use a lot of what we would call disruptors. In other words, pain is kind of a circuit. If you can think of it as an electrical circuit. And every time that, there is pain and the nerves react, that it goes through that, the current is run through that circuit and it becomes more deeply embedded, behaviorally. So we do things to try to break that circuit. One of the things we do is we teach people how to release endorphins and dopamine and direct them to the site where there's pain. We teach people to use imagery or use breathing. We teach them to use distraction. So there are all kinds of ways that we disrupt that circuit of pain. But we have excellent results, I would have to say. Excellent results.
Follow-up from Tammy. She says her issue is back and nerve pain.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I would do if I was working with Tammy, first of all, I imagine it's some type of probably spinal stenosis or degenerative disc disease. I would imagine it's something like that. So what I would do would be to relax all of the muscles in the area. I would tell the nerves to calm down. I would reduce swelling, tell the body to release any swelling, any fluid in the area, and then I would probably talk right to the nerves, and I would tell the client that those nerves can no longer send signals of pain to the brain. And I would give the client the power to turn off those signals with a little physical action, like maybe rubbing their thumb and forefinger together. We call that an anchor. So there are all kinds of ways to go about it, but it sounds as if her pain is in a specific area, which actually makes it easier to treat than something more systemic like fibromyalgia or the pain from MS or rheumatoid conditions.
She has scoliosis.
Okay. Well, yeah.
So she says, Tammy says she has rods and screws in her back and has had 6 surgeries for it. She's actually not that far from Toronto and would love to make contact with you. Do you want to give out your information?
Oh, absolutely. Please, Tammy could always call me on my mobile. It's also a business phone, and that's 416-454-8041. That's 416-454-8041. And I generally see clients at the Bloom Center for Hypnotherapy, which is in the Danforth area of Toronto. And you can look up bloomhypnosis.com to see all of the cool stuff on our website. So yes, please send me a text or give me a jingle, and I would love to work that out and see if I could be of help.
Thank you so much. And let's get to another Torontonian here. Canadian Joe on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio, I think asks a very legitimate question, especially because he's a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and that's tough to have that happen when you're a Leafs fan. But Joe's question is... That joke went right over your head, didn't it, Lesley?
Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. I don't know anything about sports.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. I know he got it. I apologize. But Canadian Joe's question, and we have to separate him because we got American Joe in the other chat room. Who's got fantastic hair. But Canadian Joe is asking, I think, a very relevant question here, especially for a Leafs fan. He says, does a person's imagination play a role in hypnosis?
I would say absolutely it does, because imagination is a creative part of your brain, and when we're using an induction, we are asking people to visualize certain things. So I think that it does help as far as getting into a nice good trance and separating yourself from your day-to-day worries and stressors. But interestingly enough, in doing past life regression or any kind of regression, including interlife regression and working with experiencers, they have wired a lot of people's brains up to some very sophisticated equipment to determine what parts of the brain are firing during actual regression, because of course there is a school of thought that say, well, past life regressions, it's fabrications, it's confabulations, it's people free associating, blah, blah, blah. Well, what they have found out is that the parts of the brain that are firing during a regression are not what you would expect if there was fabrication. It's not firing in the executive centers. What's happening is the parts of the brain that contain the deepest memories, the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, those are the areas that are firing. So whatever's going on in the hypnotic regression process, by using relaxation, we can dissolve that curtain or membrane between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And so I tend to believe the science. I tend to believe what I see intuitively, that in regression we are seeing actual recall of memories. And again, I'm talking about working with adults. Now, I also have a certification in pediatric hypnosis, but I do not do regression processes with children or anything like that. In fact, we really don't even put them under. That's a whole different thing. I think hypnosis is extremely unreliable when working with children.
Yeah, that's where it gets a little bit difficult with everything, is when you get into kids. We only have about less than 2 minutes before we go to break. What about children who are ET contactees? Is that different?
Well, I myself really don't like to do a regression process with anyone under the age of 12. And that's just my own standard. Because now if a child comes to you and says, I've had this happen, usually a child, if you feel that they're having extraterrestrial experiences, or if they feel that something is going on, they're not repressing memories. The repression of memories is usually something that happens a little bit later on, right? So children are kind of open. So you're not going to find a lot of memory repression and with little kids that would require a regression process. They will usually tell you everything just by some easy real-time questions. Or they may draw things for you. Sometimes I have kids draw.
I'd hate to see what my kids would draw. Holy cow. Honestly. And I'm serious about that, because all three of my children are gifted. Mm-hmm. My oldest daughter is very intuitive and psychic. My middle daughter, my stepdaughter, is gifted where, since we moved actually into this house 2 years ago, she has fairies that visit her. Mm-hmm. And she'll walk right in the back. She doesn't care about the bears or cougars or whatever. She goes and sits in the back, meditates, and next thing you know, she says she'll have like fairies all lined up along her arms.
Oh, I have no doubt.
And then our little guy is, we're just noticing he's starting to see strange sights in our house. So, Lesley, I'm going to get you to hold on here. We're going to hop out for our first break of the night. Lesley Mitchell Clarke is our guest. Hypnotherapy, ET contact, and whatever you guys really want to talk about. We're going unscripted for the next couple of hours as Lesley is going the distance. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over Spaced Out Radio Night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Want a place to share your experiences without feeling judged? We have the place for you. If you've experienced sightings or contact with ETs, ghosts, cryptids, or UFOs, and you'd like someone to confidentially look into the matter, just fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Our goal is to help you get the answers you need to the experiences you've had with our professional team of researchers. Your information stays 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines report. Fill out your experience today only at spacedoutradio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Jeremy Corbell, movie director, writer, artist extraordinaire, spoke at Contact in the Desert. He is going to be on the show tomorrow night. We're talking skinwalkers, we're talking alien contact, and so much more. We get into it with Jeremy starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We're live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Serenograph. Serenograph is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with me live during the show as well. Give your Facebook page a like to ours. Spaced Out Radio Show on Instagram. Dave Scott, SOR. We'd love to add you. You can also listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States. Tune in. Download our shows from iTunes. Make sure you give us a follow on there as well. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for as low as $5 a month. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Watch Contactee from Lesley Mitchell Clarke or Tim Doyle's UFO Seekers. Read up on the Encounter online where my blog is hiding, and so much more. SpacedOutRadio.com. Lesley Mitchell Clarke is our guest. Hypnotherapy to alien contact. We're running the gamut with LMC Media tonight. Leslie, welcome.
All right,
back.
Here I am with my many hats and many guises.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, right during the break, we were talking about a little story, and I'll fill the audience in. Normally, a lot of times I'll go outside to grab some fresh air when it's not feeling very smoky, and thank goodness the 24 previous hours we actually had rain here, which took away all the campfire smell, and everything is so damp, and you know, all of a sudden I'm seeing green in my grass for the first time in 2 months.
Oh, thank God!
Yes.
Thank God! Yeah.
And I'll tell you, you know, it's funny because as I'm standing outside just trying to grab some fresh air and just kind of stretch it out and everything, I have this cherry tree by my back door. It's about 30, 40 feet away, not very far, and I hear the thumping of feet in my backyard, and all of a sudden I hear the crunching of cherries in the pits inside. So I'm like, oh, the deer are around. Can't even see them. 40 feet away, my yard is so dark, cannot even see the deer. I love it, and because, you know, it could be deer. I'm assuming it's deer. It might be a bear. I have no idea. This is the wilderness, right? But nonetheless, it's kind of a cool experience. So then you started asking me about Sasquatch, if I had ever run into Sasquatch here. Now, we have found prints in the area. The unfortunate part about it is I can't get to where we found the prints because that's where the forest fire rolled through.
Oh, my God.
So, but yes, we have found prints in this area. I haven't had an experience, but when I lived down in the lower mainland of British Columbia, near the Harrison area, we actually, a couple of years ago, a friend of mine and I saw two in his backyard, in the forest behind his yard. And they were within 100 feet of us. And I'll tell you, they are a majestic creature. And I'm starting to think more and more that there is some sort of telepathic communication, especially with Sasquatch, because I'm a firm believer in what a lot of First Nations cultures say, that you don't see Sasquatch, he allows you to see him. I
agree. I think so too, Dave. I really, really do. And I think, you know, what we're probably dealing with here is, maybe before, there was any kind of, genetic tinkering going on with ourselves as potential humanoids. I think we probably were looking at a more like a Tolkien kind of a world with a lot of varieties of what you might call Miocene apes. And I think it's possible that Sasquatch, Yeti, Bigfoot, or whatever may actually be, the highest form of evolution of a being that has not been tampered with or accelerated in some sort of way. So we may be looking at the real inheritors of the earth, and I think it's, you know, they're known to travel in family groups. They seem to have some type of a ethical code. I think they probably bury their dead, which may be one reason why you know, remains are really never found, or at least not yet. And but I think they're a lot closer to us than people might be comfortable with. They're very special. They do you think, Dave, that they would fall more into the category of a humanoid or a simian creature?
I don't believe any of that. I think there is something extremely special about it. I realize I am in the minority with this, and I'll tell you why, and a lot of my listeners have heard this story. 5 days after we had the encounter with the two Sasquatch, friend of ours, the friends I used to hang out with, their 10 acres of property, it was like a mini ESETI ranch. Okay. Mm-hmm. And there was everything that happened there. That's where I had my first extraterrestrial contact. Mm-hmm. That's mm-hmm. where I had the UFO landing, saw a number of UFOs there, paranormal experiences, fairies, you name it. It was mm-hmm. It was happening there. And if I could have afforded to buy that property off of them when they had it for sale, I would have bought it, because there was just something special about that piece of property. And anyhow, long story short, 5 days after that, we were doing a perimeter paranormal walk around their house. And there were 4 of us. And the First Nations in that part of British Columbia, in the Harrison area, where they're, you know, the word Sasquatch is actually comes from, they tend to believe that Sasquatch is either interdimensional or more so a shapeshifter. Mm-hmm. And so when we were doing this perimeter walk, we started walking along the side of the house. And I had the feeling, and I spoke up to the group of 4 of us, that we were being followed. Mm-hmm. And we were about halfway along the length of the house, and I turned back, and kind of kitty corner from the house, you know, if you drew a diagonal line about 50, 60 feet from the house, there was this old 20, 25, 30-foot cherry tree. And it had been on the property forever. And my friend who used to own the property, they owned it for like 42 years, that piece of land. And at the bottom left of this cherry tree, as I looked at it from about the ground to about 8-10 feet up, there was pixelation standing there, much like you would see some pixelation on TV.
Interesting.
The funny part about it is only one other person out of the 4 of us saw that pixelation. The other 2 weren't seeing anything. They were getting frustrated. They're like, come on, let's continue on. So we walked to the front of the house, and all of a sudden, all of us stopped immediately, because right behind us we heard this horrific sounding roar/scream come right behind us. And the interesting part about that, Lesley, was that there was absolutely no echo. Okay? Mm-hmm. And in where they lived was on top of a mountain, which was like a low peak, and then the hillside continued, you know, on the west side of the mountain. And you would hear all the animals, the goats, the cows, the horses, the pigs, and whatever people were farming. You'd hear the sounds of those animals echo on down. But this roar did not echo. It was the strangest thing, and I've only heard one other Sasquatch researcher say they have heard the roar/scream, and there was no echo to it whatsoever at all. Yeah. And so that all of a sudden, seeing that pixelation and then the roar, and then 5 days previous having the sighting of 2 of them, what actually happened there was it really made me believe, point blank, there was something special to this creature. So when I started interviewing people on here, and we're hearing hominid, we're hearing Gigantopithecus, we're hearing leftovers from the great apes, a little bit more advanced than what you see in Africa, going back to Pangea, when we were all one single continent, I don't buy it. There's no proof that Sasquatch is a great ape ancestor or whatever, or even a Cro-Magnon man or whatever you want to call it. I don't believe that for a second, because in my mind, and this is my opinion, in my eye, knowing what I saw, it doesn't fit the landscape, and the First Nations stories do.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I'm open to that, Dave. I mean, until we were able to extract DNA from one of these creatures, it's we don't really know what's going on, and it's your and the Native American Native Canadian point of view is absolutely every bit as valid, and your story is, of course, fascinating. Now, do you think that, given that they can, shapeshift or, use, for lack of a better term, like a cloak of invisibility, and there's a lot of evidence to support that. Many people have the kinds of stories that you've just related. What do you think the origin of these creatures is? Do you think that they are indigenous to the planet, or do you think that they came here as with other with extraterrestrials? I know there does seem to be some evidence that points to increased sightings of craft in areas where there's a lot of Bigfoot activity going on. There does seem to be, some sort of correlation. I know some people have seen what they claim are actual encounters between Bigfoot and craft. So, you may very well, be absolutely right. But what do you think the origin of this being is that seems to be all over the planet, by the way?
I have no idea. I really have no idea. I would love to figure that out, and I would love to be able to try and put an answer to that. But the real answer that I have, and the only one that fits, is I don't know. What I do know is all of these people who are running around with drones and firearms and cameras and all of this equipment in the forest, and they are continually getting nothing besides maybe a footprint, or, a so-called scat sample or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. This is one thing, and, my listeners have heard me gripe about this in the past, but I'll quickly mention it to you. This is my one issue that I have with Sasquatch researchers, is that they all tell us they're doing these scientific experiments out in the field trying to figure out what this creature is. We know it exists. There's too many sightings. We know it exists, but they are, in my opinion, shooting down possibilities before they've even researched them. Because they don't want to believe it. They want to be all science-y. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But explain to me how... Okay, a gentleman who's been on this show a couple of times, Eric Mothman, he lives down in Florida. He's had Sasquatch sightings down in his area where he has a cabin on 50-plus acres of, natural woodlands. And he has set up a trifecta of game cameras in a triangle, and he's put a bag of apples. They don't have bears in his area. And yet those apples, which are strung 10, 12 feet up, the game cameras will go off, and all of a sudden the next photos will see the bag of apples on the ground, and those photos before don't show anything. Yet they'll show these little white orbs or something along those lines. Mike Johnson, who researches out in Colorado, he keeps the same old clunker of a vehicle because the Sasquatch that he has built a trust with have recognize the sound of his vehicle.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to change it because of that. And it's to the point with him when they go camping, and I would love to do this, they'll camp in the wilderness in the same spot every time, and in the middle of the night, whoever the rookie is on that tour, they have to sit or sleep at the back of the tent. Okay? And the reason why is... every time they have a rookie in there, all of a sudden that whoever is sleeping back there, whether it's a man, woman, even Mike's children have had to do it, where all of a sudden they'll feel a big palm come on their shoulder or their face through the tent. So I think we're dealing with a very subtle creature, but what that creature is, I have no idea. I really don't know. But I do not believe for a second that it is something of hominid descent.
Mm-hmm. It's something completely something completely different. Well, in order to, if they were going to become, if a Sasquatch was going to become, invisible, as it were, I mean, really, it would just be a case of them speeding up the molecular activity of their body. It's all vibration. We can only see, within a certain frequency. They may be able to alter the frequency of the oscillations of their cells, and they may be able to, as you pointed out, to move in and out of different states of being, of reality. But they certainly seem to be able to, to get around any kind of situation that the so-called cryptozoologists the trap cameras, they're always putting as you said, bait, apples or meat, whatever, and that's always gone, and they never see a thing. And as far as developing relationships, I know, Dave, have you, maybe you told me this, I believe that there's a Native Canadian tribe indigenous to BC that has a long-standing relationship with these beings, to the point where they honor them by leaving salmon for them. They have a symbiotic relationship, and they believe that the beings protect them in certain ways. So,
there are a number of those. There's also the belief here in British Columbia that a lot of First Nations women, as you know, in British Columbia here, we have a horrid record, and it's nothing to be proud of First Nations women going missing.
Yes.
And I live right at the beginning of what they call the Highway of Tears.
Oh, God, yeah.
And literally dozens of First Nations women have gone missing. And I was actually talking to a First Nations client of mine one day, and we got on the topic of Sasquatch. And, I was trusting her, and I wanted to ask this question to a First Nations person for so long, and I finally got the strength to ask it. And I said point blank, I said, up where this is happening, I said, I'm just curious, because in the Chehalis First Nation, which is in Harrison, where they have a lot of Sasquatch activity, mm-hmm. They used to tell their women, and they still may do, tell their young women, if you're menstruating, pregnant, or within a year of giving birth, do not walk on your own anywhere after dusk, because there are Sasquatch out there looking for wives. Okay,
wow.
First Nations believe that there is a lack of female Sasquatch, which allows First Nations women to be kidnapped. Mm-hmm. So I asked this lady this, and I was trying to be so sensitive. I said, just curious, what do you think the chances are of, we know there's a murderer up, a serial killer up north here that is murdering and kidnapping a lot of First Nations women, but how many do you think have been taken as Sasquatch wives? And coincidentally, did not know this, her cousin's wife was one of the missing women. And she was within a year of giving birth. And she reiterated exactly what I said, which was that they are taught, if they're menstruating, or if a woman is menstruating, or within pregnant or giving birth, to stay away, because the odor is an attractant to Sasquatch. She said to me that she wouldn't be surprised, and this shocked me. She said she wouldn't be surprised if 20 to 30% of those women were taken as Sasquatch wives.
Wow.
And she said the elders had tried to talk to the RCMP about that, but of course the RCMP is not going to pay attention to what they consider a legend of disbelief.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a little bit of a conundrum there. Yes, there is a serial killer up there. That's not to be downplayed, and it is horrific that these women have found the families have no closure. These women are just gone.
Yes.
However, there is that possibility.
Interesting. I mean, do you think that it would be possible genetically for these beings that they would be close enough to our genome to be able to actually create hybrid beings that are part Sasquatch and part humanoid?
Absolutely.
Maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would totally agree with that. I don't think there is I don't think there's any evidence to write it off. Now a lot of people may not agree with that thinking, may say that we're trying to make fun of this situation, but we're not making fun of it at all. And I strongly believe that there is a possibility of that being there.
Yes. Well, you have to, I mean, although, as you say, Sasquatch may or may not have a genetic relationship to other simian creatures on this planet, but from a behavioral standpoint, if you look at gorillas, they are into tribal warfare, and they take hostages and make them slaves. I mean, they have really kind of, if you look at the simian behavior, it's very much related to what we do as humans. It's about power and territory and who's king of the hill, and then decimating the other group, and then taking slaves and hostages. They actually do this. I mean, I don't know if it was Jane Goodall that discovered it, but there's a behavioral pattern that's certainly, if we could accept that, which is a reality, is it so far-flung to accept that a more evolved creature, whether or not it's genetically related to the simians on the planet today, would be interested in kidnapping humanoids even as a trophy or a conquest?
But when it comes to Sasquatch, too, a lot of experiencers have told researchers that they have been tracked by Sasquatch in the forests, say around their campsites, and in the dead of night, people have seen strange lights flying around, and they've heard the Sasquatch absolutely take off, like get the hell out of Dodge, like they don't want anything to do with those lights in the sky. Have you heard stories like that?
I have heard that there is, what I have heard is the Sasquatch get agitated, and you can hear them call and go through their various, vocalizations when there is simultaneously a good deal of craft being sighted as far as lights. So there is some connection there. There really, really is. There's some connection. Maybe through the eons they've learned to become fearful. Maybe they've been taken for experiments themselves by certain species of ETs. Who knows? But there's some connection. And just briefly moving away from ET, I think it was it Bashar? Some channeled information about El Chupacabra and perhaps Mothman and some of these other rather disturbing cryptozoological mysteries that may or may not exist on our planet. I think it was Bashar that said that we've been visited by so many different ET beings, and some of them have brought their dogs with them, meaning that is kind of a metaphor. Like some of these very mysterious creatures, like El Chupacabra, actually were transported here as, by other ETs who either wanted them to cause destruction, or they were just, part of their culture. Who knows? But I think there are a lot of creatures out there that aren't necessarily indigenous to the earth that are, that are real.
Well, you look at the octopus. There's a big debate on where the octopus came from because it really has no tie to any other creature here on the planet.
Right, and cephalopods are a mystery, complete mystery. They're unlike anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's absolutely true.
I'll tell you a good story that happened just a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, lovely.
We had Olaf Phillips on the air talking about the secret space program, and with about half an hour to go in the show, I got the same feeling that I had when Carl the alien appeared at my window. And I was looking up, and I couldn't see anything through my window, and it was just eerie. Like when you have an experience, and you can agree with this or tell me your thoughts on this, and I'm sure I'm correct on this, but when you have an experience, whether it's paranormal, cryptid, alien, whatever it may be, and I'm sure your clients would agree with me, Lesley, you learn to recognize the energy, even though that experience may have lasted 5 seconds, if that. Your body and your mind never forget that energetic connection. Would you agree?
Yes, I completely agree. And even many people report to me that they may hear sounds that always happen before an encounter. Some of them have talked about a series of beeps. Some of them say that they hear a sound that's almost like sounds like static, electricity, or maybe even white noise. So, and that feeling that you are talking about, that reaction to that energy is palpable and unforgettable. And I think that, of course, when we talk about, implants and, the aliens being able to find you and whatever, although implants certainly exist, and I have worked with many clients and some who've even had them removed and analyzed. These things absolutely exist. But I don't think that evolved benevolent ETs need any kinds of implants to locate us if they wish to, because every human being has an individual brain signature, as it were. If you can tune into the brain signature, you could find anyone on the planet. And I think with some evolved beings, that's how they identify us. That's how they identify each other. So the idea of implants equal barbaric abduction experiences is not really. I don't know if I actually accept that. I think that implants have occurred for reasons to probably enhance the experiencer's own psychic abilities so that they can communicate better. I know we've talked about this very often, but I really am of the belief system that most extraterrestrial encounters, most contacts are benevolent and or completely benign. And sometimes when the memory is not completely intact because the beings don't want us to carry that around with us, then negative ideas and paranoid ideas start to pop into the picture, and twisted memories even. But in my work, the amount of negative experiences are so few, Dave. But now I'm not saying that there aren't, distorted memories or disturbing feelings from, missing time or this, that, and the other, but these experiences are primarily benevolent.
Well, what happened that night was, after the show, I had Olive on the phone with me, and I went outside into my carport, and my vehicles were parked on the outside of the carport because my carport is literally filled with a stack of firewood that I can't chop right now because they literally are not allowing us to cut wood just in case of a spark.
Right.
It's that tinder around here. So
yeah.
So I'm parking my vehicles outside my carport right now, and in between my two vehicles, I saw something move. It moved west to east, and then about 2 minutes later, east to west, at about 6 feet high. So I was like, oh, this is getting interesting. So I ended up ending my conversation with Olive, and I called up a good friend of mine who is also a guest on this show. I know you've heard him, R. Keith Andrews.
Of course.
And I called up Keith because every time when I had the experience with Carl the original time, I literally called him up after the show, and I'm like, dude, what the hell is happening? And we went through it all, right? So I go then upstairs in my house. I get out on my patio, and I start looking into my backyard. And from my backyard, I keep hearing this clicking sound. Like a,
Mm-hmm.
Much like you would, much like you hear on the movie Signs.
Yes.
And I hear that in my backyard. and I hear it coming up my driveway because I got a pretty long driveway.
Yeah.
And I hear it from the top of my driveway where my trees are. And I'm like, well, that's weird. I've never heard that sound. And as soon as I'm thinking that, Keith says, have you heard any strange sounds? And I said, yes, I just heard this clicking sound coming from the driveway and in the backyard. And I kind of, I gave him my impression of it. He goes, does it sound more like this? And he does this clicking sound. And I'm like, that's it. That's the sound. And then all of a sudden I hear it in my backyard again. He goes, yeah, they're there. They're there.
Yeah.
And so him being intuitive with the ETs, he starts picking them up. And apparently it's Carl and these two other guys there, these gray dudes. And apparently they're having a real conundrum because normally when people, according to Keith, normally when people hear them or get the feeling when they're around, people run away. They go hide. They get inside where it's safe. And they couldn't figure out why the hell I was standing on my patio saying, show me. Show me. Where are you? You owe me. You owe me, Carl. And I was standing there. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I was a little tense. Like, what do I do if all of a sudden Carl actually appears? What do I do? Do I run down after him? Do I stay where I am and just have that contact? Like, what do I do? But no matter what, I was staying out on that patio, man.
Yeah,
I was staying out there. I never saw them. So I did what any good Canadian would do. I ended up grabbing my car keys and I went to Tim Hortons. Right? I grabbed myself a Dutchie donut and a Pepsi. And because I actually, and the reason why is I felt that they wanted me to drive to a lake a couple kilometers from my house. So I said, screw this. If I'm getting in my car to go to the lake, I'm not going there empty-handed. I drove the 10 kilometers to get to Tim Hortons, drive all the way back, go to the lake, see nothing there either. But nonetheless, I wasn't going empty-handed.
Yeah, good for you. You were prepared with your double and your Dutchie. You were ready to go.
There's no messing around. There is no messing around. And I said, Keith, I literally said, Keith, I'm not doing this without going to Tim Hortons first. And he had a good laugh over that.
That is funny.
Keith is in our chat rooms right now, so I'm sure he's having a little bit of a snicker on that. But, That
is funny. That's pretty funny, Dave. But, the clicking sound that now, again, that's something else that I have heard reported many a time. It's the beeping, the clicking sound, the electrical sound, the staticky sound, the white, this is something that is not at all uncommon, the clicking sound that you're describing.
Well, I can tell you this. That was the first time I had heard the clicking sound. And, well, maybe that I heard it, that I recognized it, that it was out of the ordinary. And I'll tell you this. I now know what to listen for, and every time I'm outside now, day or night, I am listening for that sound.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of different animals up here that are both, daytime and nocturnal. I've never heard that sound. Never heard that sound.
That's nothing that you would expect from any kind of animal that would be in your area. And do you think, Dave, that because of these fires, these horrendous fires that have just ravaged BC, do you think that there will be increased Bigfoot sightings, Sasquatch sightings?
You know what? I don't know. I think in our area they've been pushed out. Like on the weekend, on Saturday, we had 7 new fires start locally here. When I say locally, I'm saying within 50 miles, 40 miles, 50 miles. And it was all started by lightning. And I know 2 of the areas where these fires hit, there have been Sasquatch sightings. And in the one area I had where I usually go up on Mount Timothy, thank goodness they got that fire out pretty quickly. I actually had a weird experience where I thought we were being tracked by Dogman. and we got the hell out of there. It was just the weirdest energy. But I think that with our area, with all the animals scrambling to kind of, get out of the area and get out of the way, I think from where we found the prints last year, I could see the Sasquatch moving west because the fires are not in that area, or northwest. Or if they got across the highway somehow, they could head east. But it's just so hard to say. I haven't heard any reports of Sasquatch being seen during these fires. I think they just got the hell out of Dodge, to be honest.
Yeah, I hope that they were not hurt. I mean, it's a terrible thing to think about what happens to the wildlife in these incidents. But again, we're not sure if these beings are interdimensional, if they're able to transport themselves, we don't really know. And so you'll have to just let me know if there's increased activity, because you will certainly hear about it.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely we can. Absolutely we can. When you are regressing people or talking to people about their ET contact, have other people, you mentioned that they've heard clicking or they hear static or they have little trigger effects. For our audience, could you describe some of these triggers?
You mean when someone feels sure that they're going to have an ET experience?
Yes.
Is that what you mean? Yes. Well, in addition to, the kinds of sounds that they may hear, of course, most often these ET experiences happen, I'm going to say, 2 or 3 a.m. when people are passing from one sleep stage into another. I think that's when the access is easiest. So someone may be actually in a light alpha state of sleep. And usually there is the feeling, a heightened awareness where you are sure that, someone else is in the room and observing you. And of course that can happen also with, paranormal activity with discarnate entities, but this is a very strong physical feeling that there's someone there, but people can't always see them. And again, excuse me, and sometimes people have the sensation of, a kind of what we would call sleep paralysis. They've been, turned off. They can't move their body. And sometimes when, you're talking about a couple and one of the people in the couple has experiences but the other one doesn't, the person who doesn't have experiences will be completely turned off. You can't wake them up no matter what you do. They're so deeply unconscious that they can't be, rousted. So the person who knows that someone has come for them knows they have to go through the experience without any help, without any observance. And I think most people who are multiple experiencers, once they hear that first sound or feel that that tingly energy, like static electricity in the air, once they feel that, they sort of resign themselves that they're going. And I believe that, this is all by agreements that these individuals have made for whatever higher purpose they're doing with the ETs. There are agreements in place. I don't believe that these abductions happen against the individual's will, although it may seem that way because the individuals, the experiencers, don't have complete cognition of their long-standing relationships with the beings.
I can see that, and I can appreciate that. I'm not 100%, Lesley, on these paths that we signed agreements beforehand, because I can't really see someone signing on for a very radical operation on their eyeballs or getting anal probed or anything like that. I just can't see someone saying, yeah, that sounds good, I'll sign that contract here.
Well, I think the worst things that happen to people, and if you're talking about, medical procedure, I think that those things that take place happen at the hands of humanoid collaborations with certain groups of ETs that have to do with our Black Ops programs. In my experience in the regressions that I've done with people that have had disturbing medical procedures, there are always humanoids involved in some kind of military capacity, and they're working in conjunction with the more savvy, medically trained personnel that are of ET origin, often tall whites. The Greys seem to be more like, perhaps slaves is too strong a word, but I think that they definitely, the Greys are workers that do the bidding of other beings. And I'm not even sure that the Greys are fully biological. I mean, I think that they may be, very sophisticated android-type beings with, without, intestinal organs and without vocal cords. They have been designed for space travel and to do the bidding of beings that have a harder time adapting to interplanetary conditions, shall we say.
Well, I understand that, and I can see making an agreement, to keep in touch with your soul brethren. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I can see that, that if you're part of a group up in the soul level, and yes, we're getting a little woo-woo right now with this, but I mean, because honestly, we don't know, but it does make sense that if your soul brethren send you down into a human incarnation, they may want to keep track of you. I do get that, and I understand that, as hard as it is for me to maybe bite my tongue and snarking on that at the same time, I do understand that there is a relative possibility. But what about people who, let's say, have no family lineage of extraterrestrial contact that they know of, or they're the first ones? How do you explain that happening?
Well, again, I believe that this goes beyond what happens right here in the terrestrial level. In addition to past life regressions, I work in an area called interlife regression, which is the same kind of a process, but it focuses specifically on what happens in the interlife, our real home, before we decide, if we choose to come back into physical form and for various tasks or learnings or for others or whatever the deal may be. And what's interesting about the interlife experience is that, people who have never had what I would call, extraterrestrial encounters will sometimes report when they get to the interlife that there are a number of beings just walking around who are not, humanoid in the strictest sense. And so, and then, in the interlife experience, people tend to have certain commonalities that happen to them. They pass out of their bodies. They're met by either religious figures or loved ones. They are taken to meet their loved ones and friends and family who have passed over. They eventually go before a council. And this is something that people just report over and over and over again. And this was really discovered by the late, great, Michael Newton, who was the guy who began exploring the interlife. Anyway, in these councils, it is often reported that, again, there are a mix of different types of beings in these councils. And, it's my feeling, having this kind of evidence, presented to us, it's my feeling that we are in a soul group with a lot of different, bipedal beings. We all have souls. We can incarnate into different planets. So when someone is here on Earth in a learning situation and their family has no particular connection or history of experiences, so there's no genetic tracking, if you will, that individual may indeed have a benevolent agreement and attachment in place to where they're going to do another job in the, their their brethren from a planet that they had incarnated in previously. So it can be fairly complex. We never really know for sure unless we get in there. But what I can tell you is people who are just ordinary people without paranormal experiences who come for regression work often find themselves exploring the areas where we cross over, and there are beings, all humanoids certainly, but there are beings of various heights and skull shapes and colors and number of fingers and things like that.
People who are having these experiences, how many of them are having experiences with multiple races?
Oh, I'd have to say all. And certainly in the realm of past life regression, I mean, people, there's no way to. Of course, we give the suggestion and we talk to or I do. I cleanse the room and put in protection and ask for the help of the person's guides, and also ask that the individual be taken to the life that most applies to what's going on with them now, that will help them the most. And once I give that suggestion, you never know where the person is going. I've had, highly educated individuals, lawyers, doctors, judges, whatever, who in their regression have gone back to a, extremely primitive life where they're practically monosyllabic, where they don't really speak to me. They indicate with a few words about their environment and what's happening. So it's it's kind of interesting, of course, and that life could be in darkest Africa. It could be in the wilds of the Amazon jungle, the Middle East. We incarnate into all different kinds of bodies, and which is why racism is so completely inane and absurd and ridiculous. Because we've all been all different types of people. That's how we gain experience. A little interesting story. I had a client, I guess it was about a year ago, and this gal she looked like a supermodel. She was very tall and blonde. She was a social worker. She wasn't in that profession at all, but this girl was a real stunner. And she kind of came, because she was curious. She'd never really been comfortable in her own body. And I'm not talking about some type of transgender thing. She just didn't feel like it was really her. So again, as I always do, I protected the space and reached out to her guides and to my guides that, the life that she needed to hear about would be explored. So what we found out is this gal recounted a life that was very close to now. It was like the 1950s, and she was an African American woman, a single mother who somehow, through getting to secretarial school, had managed to pull herself out of poverty, and worked as a secretary at a university. And this was one of the few cases where I actually got enough information, names, dates, locations, where if I had wanted to, actually track it down to validate it, boy, I probably could have, because of all the info that I had. Her church, she gave me the name of her church. And I think the reason that she was uncomfortable in this life is just she was getting a real, what I would have to call a bleed through from this very recent lifetime where she was, an African American woman, different height, different weight. And once we had done the regression, and she saw this woman and was able to, release her pain or whatever it was that she had carried in with her, those feelings of being disassociated from her current body had disappeared. So she had been able to resolve what the issues were with this woman's life, her frustration, the racism she experienced, the stress of being a single mother, all of that stuff, all of that pain was released. And when that occurred, and when I brought her out of trance, she felt completely differently. She was comfortable. She was carrying her former self's identity to a certain extent, and trauma around with her.
Did she ever feel all alone? Did she feel that she was the only one in the world going through this at that time?
Oh, yes. I think there were tremendous feelings of loneliness and isolation. And I think some of that, again, was a bleed through from the recent life, because this was a while ago, but I think that she had left her family, her supportive family group, maybe in the Deep South, and traveled to the North for a better life. And, there were also issues with men she had, because she had been abandoned by the man that was the father of her child. She wasn't married. And again, that's a big stigma. So there was some shame and some anger and some feelings of abandonment. And, all of that stuff had been carried in. And yes, a huge amount of loneliness. I think that woman was a very, very lonely person, except for her support in her church and her gospel, in her really serious gospel church that she attended. So, it was fascinating.
Could we get into the loneliness that a lot of experiencers have? Actually,
yes.
We could probably do that next hour,
yes.
Okay? Because we are literally about a minute away from taking a break here. I'm just writing a note for loneliness, because I don't think a lot of people who have never had an experience really grasp the idea that when you have this experience of ET contact, benevolent or malevolent, does not matter, how alone you feel when that happens.
Yes.
It's a horrific feeling.
Yes, it is.
Because you really don't know who to talk to.
No, you don't. And we can only hope that with shows like yours and, some of the good work that organizations like MUFON are doing, and some of the great, events that we have, conventions going on, that type of isolation is rapidly diminishing, because we do have places where people can reach out. But yes, often by the time someone comes to see me, they think they may be insane, frankly.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, we are going to hop out for our second and final break of the night. Tonight, our guest is Lesley Mitchell Clarke from Contactee, LMC Media. You can find Lesley's videos at spacedoutradio.com. Highly suggest you check them out. Take the time, because she is a very talented person. She's a hypnotherapist, works hand in hand with ET contactees, abductees, trying to find solutions as to what is going on. We got Lesley for one more hour. She is going the distance, being brave, staying up till 3 a.m. in the East Coast. 3 a.m. Thank goodness she's got her coffee. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We got about one more break. 7 minutes of just promos going on before we do it all again. We'll see you on the other side.
We're getting strange on Saturday nights. Hi there, this is Dave Cruz, and each Saturday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I will take you on a tour of the weird and obtuse on Spaced Out Saturdays, from aliens to Sasquatch and every tinfoil hat in between. We got you covered. Join us at spacedoutradio.com for Spaced Out Saturdays. See you there.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Would you like someone you can trust to look into it? We have just the place. The SOR Sightlines Report is the place for you to find answers. Whether it's Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, ghosts, aliens, or anything strange, the Sightlines Report will get you connected with one of our expert researchers to find out what's going on. All of your personal information is kept 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report, a place for you to find the answers you need, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories. From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back for the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, movie director and author Jeremy Corbell is going to join us. We're going to get into the skinwalker phenomena. We're going to get into alien contact, hybrids, absolutely everything, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We are also live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Serenograph. Serenograph is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you could be like Jeff, Skeptic, Mike, John, and Bobby. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to connect with me live during the show. You can also follow me at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. You can listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States. Tune in, and you can give us a subscription and a follow on iTunes as well. If you could, we'd appreciate that. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Pick up a t-shirt or a poster. Join the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. Read up on the encounter online. Listen to some Bumblefoot, or how about some great videos from Contactee and UFO Seekers. Everything at spacedoutradio.com. Our resident hypnotherapist, Lesley Mitchell Clarke, is going the distance tonight with us. Lesley, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave. I'm perky and really excited by all this cool stuff we've been talking about so far.
Me too. Me too. And during the break, once again, you and I are chatting, and you asked me an odd question. You're like, "Is there a lot of spirit activity around your house?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I'm a weirdo, man. You know, I got lots of weird stuff happening here. Lots of weird stuff."
Well, you've also got, kids are their energy can, just without them even being aware of it, there can be, poltergeist activity that is not really about any kind of a destructive spirit. It's just sort of random energy that flies out of the kids, it's and it can be used, by an opportunistic spirit. But, so some of the stuff going on could just be, the energy from the kids.
Could very well be. But there's always something going on. There's always something moving. There's always some sort of noise, outside of the dogs and cat and the children. So I never know what the heck is going to happen around here. That's kind of the fun part about it.
True.
So do you live in a haunted house yourself?
I do. Our house is, by Canadian standards, pretty old. It's over 120 years old now. And, but, sort of wherever I am, stuff happens. It doesn't, and my kids, when they were young, they were both very sensitive. And, one of my grandmothers used to show up, and they described her, and I knew it was my Swedish grandmother, and she used to stroke their hair. So, and I've had, a number of experiences in this house that, that have to do with, my own, people who have passed that have come to visit me after their passings. So as far as resident spirits, it's pretty clean right now. But, as I say, anywhere I go, stuff is going to happen. It's just the way it is. I've come to accept it. In fact, and things are, my husband is now used to it after 25 years. He's now used to the, all the stuff that goes on around me. But when we were first married, he was, my husband is a rather, well-recognized jazz drummer. He has won the Order of Canada, and he's many Grammys in June. Anyway, I was on tour with him, and we were staying at a hotel in San Diego called the Horton Grand. Now, there is a section of San Diego that's called either Old Town or Gas Town, I forget, but it kind of goes way back by North American standards. And the building of this Horton Hotel had been moved from its original location. So I think the spirits were agitated just by that. But it had been moved. It had been a house of ill repute, a Chinese bordello, gambling place, whatever. Anyway, there was a room that in this Horton Hotel, the hotel dated from maybe, I'm going to say 1860, 1850, something like that, the structure. And this particular room, they never rented out because there had been a gambling game that went awry, and one of the players had shot to death the other player, and there had been so much spirit activity, negative activity in that room where this murder and this gambling game occurred that they just never rented out that particular room. Well, they always put the musicians in the worst possible places, right? So our room, my husband Terry's and my room, was literally next door to the forbidden room, right? Just completely next door. So I watched the band play a set, and I was feeling very strange, and I just wanted to go back maybe to the room and just, tack out. So the room had been adapted with the key card, right? This is so many years ago, but it had a key card. And my key card would not work. I kept putting it in, and the light was going green, and I tried to open the door when it was green, and it wouldn't open. And then I felt someone come up right behind me. And I thought it was my husband because he was right in my space, right up behind me, almost like in a sexual kind of way, but coming up right behind me. I could feel the heat of someone's body, and I could feel the breath on my neck. And then he made, the being that was behind me made just sort of a low, like, hey, like that, only deep. And I really thought it was my husband just fooling around with me. And I turned around, and there was no one there. And then the door of my room just opened up. So
eerie. I'll take aliens over that crap anytime.
I know. I had a disgruntled gambling guy who apparently mistook me for a Chinese prostitute.
Very tough considering you're so blonde and blue-eyed, too.
I know. I'm from the very far north of China.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, definitely.
But lots of things like that have happened to me. I have a real good ghost story I could tell you in a minute if you would like.
Yeah.
This is and I don't think I've ever discussed this on the radio because it's pretty personal, but going way back in time, I was just out of university, and I had what I thought was like my dream job. I was a tour guide at Universal Studios, and for a young aspiring actor, there could be nothing better. It was magnificent, and I met someone and fell in love with him at the Universal tour. He was a fellow tour guide, but also a writer, and his name was David. And David had a really unique thing going on. He believe it or not, he lived in Mae West's beach house. And that is because he was a ghostwriter for Mae West. He had helped her put out, a couple of biographies and this, that, and the other thing. And although she herself didn't live at her beach house any longer, David lived there. He had his own bedroom up there. And also living in the beach house was Mae West's ancient secretary, Larry Lee, who was about, 85, at this particular time. Well, my boyfriend David, of course, he lived in Mae West's house, which was on the Santa Monica Beach. I was living in my little apartment in, North Hollywood or whatever it was. And one evening, he called me and asked me, he said, come over to the other side of the hill, which is what we say in Los Angeles. Come on over and we'll go out to eat at your favorite place, the Feed Bag, which it was. And then I remember I had to really acknowledge the time because, we were talking about an hour probably to get over there, given the traffic and whatever, and I had to get up very early in the morning. It was 8:30 at night. It was 8:30, and there was no question of that's when he called. So we were talking, and I said, I don't know if I really want to come over. It's so late. And he says, well, I think you should. And then the phone conversation, which had been really staticky, all through our whole talk, just went dead. So, the phone call went dead. He had, obviously he'd been at a payphone. He wasn't at his home phone. So I just, gave up on the whole thing and I just went to bed. Well, the next day when I went into work at Universal Studios, I, found out the shocking information that he had been killed in a hit-and-run car accident at 7 p.m. the night before. And he was killed instantly, thrown like 40 feet. So, he obviously had no idea that he was even dead. He didn't know. So as if that wasn't weird enough, later on, when they told Larry Lee that, remember now he's Miss West's secretary, still living in like what would be like a guest apartment. When they told him that David had been killed, at 7 p.m., he said, well, that is completely impossible because I was just getting ready to watch the 11 o'clock news and I heard him walk up the stairs to his room. I heard his keys, and then I also heard him rocking in his rocking chair for maybe at least an hour.
Wow.
So and Larry was not in dementia. He was as sharp as a tack. So that was a tremendous loss. But I think poor David was killed so suddenly and so horribly that he just didn't know that he had crossed over and no one had come for him. And wow. Yeah.
What is that like, Lesley, to talk to someone you don't know he's passed, but you talk to a dead man?
Yes, I did.
What is that like?
When I think about it in retrospect, well, it of course, the feelings of incredible sadness are still with me, but I guess I wish that I had had more insight at the time to understand that it was some kind of a paranormal experience. All I was hearing was a staticky phone call from, General Telephone, which was operating Santa Monica at the time. So, in retrospect, I guess in a way I'm comforted to know that it was me that he wanted to be with when at the moment that he crossed over. So I now just try to look at it as an expression of love. And I know that he has moved on. I know that he was not trapped in some, loop reliving his death. I know that he has moved on, and and I still have, love doesn't die. It may change forms, but it doesn't end, and we still have a connection. So I guess I wish I had been more sensitive and more aware at the time that phone call came through.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. I could see where that would be troublesome. Have you ever had nightmares about that? Have you ever had any sort of, your own emotional breakdowns over that?
At the time, I went into total mourning, and I felt that I could have saved him somehow if I'd got, I because I was just a kid, I was like, 19, and I cut my hair real short, like some kind of Greek tragedy, and went through a rather self-destructive phase of partying too much. And I was in deep grief and depression for some months, finally it did lift finally.
Mrs. SOR actually had that happen after her grandfather passed away, about a week or two after that happened. I was at work, and her grandfather had a very thick Dutch accent, coming over, right after World War II, and settling in Northwest or in the Yukon Territory, and all of a sudden she picked up our home line, and the only reason why we had a home line was because the alarm company we used needed a home line rather than the cell phones. Otherwise, everybody, we're for the last 10 years, 12 years, I've been a cell phone guy. I haven't had a home line. I don't see the purpose of it, but we needed one for our alarm company, and our home line rang. And she said it was very staticky, and she heard her grandfather call her what he used to call her. I don't know the Dutch phrase for it, but, and then it went staticky again, and then it just kind of dropped off.
Yeah, it sounds very much like my experience, doesn't it?
Yeah.
With the staticky line. And I think that, spirit calls are not unusual. I mean, they happen a lot. And in fact, Thomas Edison was experimenting with a kind of a spirit phone, before he himself passed away, and it's said that he got some kind of results, and they seem to be able to use electricity as energy to project thought. So it's fascinating, but spirit calls are not uncommon at all. They happen quite frequently, as I'm told.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? I'll be making a lot of prank phone calls when I'm on the other side. I can tell you that. Everybody who has wronged me is getting haunted like holy hell, man. They are getting haunted like anything.
So they better straighten up. Anybody who's done you wrong better straighten up, or they got it coming. That's for sure.
Yes, there is a lot of fist shaking going along at that.
Yep. Well, go ahead.
No, please, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, another experience that that I will mention that involved my beloved brother who passed away way too young, and we were extremely close. And my husband and I and the boys were little. We'd been vacationing in Florida when my brother had a massive heart attack, and he was still, they kept him on life support and did all kinds of stuff to him before they finally just let him go. But when we arrived home, I knew that he would want me to stay with Terry and the boys and help do the drive to get everybody home, that he wouldn't want me to leave Terry to handle all that and fly to LA when he was actually, already gone. He was brain dead. They were just, propelling him mechanically. So when we arrived home, that was the day that they actually pulled the plug and let him go. So that night, or I should say it was probably about this time, it was about 2:30 or 3 in the morning, everybody in the house was asleep. The boys were asleep. My husband was asleep next to me. I couldn't sleep. I was completely devastated by my brother's passing. And I was watching one of my favorite movies. It's a Steven Spielberg film called Always, which is sort of about, life and death and that kind of thing. And I'm watching this movie, and I suddenly hear footsteps coming down the hallway. I thought maybe it was my oldest son, Chris, but they sounded too heavy for Chris. He was only a kid. He was about, 12. So the footsteps come down the hall. I call out to Chris, no response. And then the door of my bedroom opens very slowly, and in walks, and my brother appears. And he looks as though he did, when he was young and healthy. I mean, he looks like he did when he was, maybe 25 or something. And he's looking radiant. And he just projected to me this feeling of love and peace and everything's okay and don't worry and I love you. All of that just got sort of projected at one time. All of that good stuff. And I should also add, I couldn't see the bottom half of his body. It was just, I was only seeing from his knees up. And then after I got that incredible message, his body just, his image just dissipated in a lot of little flashes. It looked like a bunch of little fireflies. And then he was gone. And the room was like, electrified with this incredible energy. Now, the next day, I found out that my mother, had also been flaked out on the couch, late at night. But it was she's on the West Coast like you. So if it was like 2:30 in the morning, what was it? It was more like 11:30, something like that for her. She was watching the news, so she heard in the kitchen, and she lives alone. She heard like ice trays, like my brother always drank big glasses of ice water. She heard all these ice trays going, and then she got up and walked into the kitchen and saw him standing there with that same beatific look on his face, looking young, looking healthy, and projecting that message, I love you, everything's all right, don't worry. And then he disappeared in the same way. So my mother and I had the same experience actually at the same time. It's almost as if my brother's spirit bilocated.
My uncle and I had the exact same dream about my grandfather for 2 months straight.
Mm-hmm.
After he passed. It was
I believe it.
It was the strangest thing. And my grandfather, I'll never forget this story. When my daughter was about 4 or 5 months old, I picked her up and I said to my ex-wife, I said, "Do you smell that?" And she goes, "What?" My grandfather used to have a shop in his garage where he rebuilt lawnmowers. Mm-hmm. That's what he did after retirement. He would go to garage sales, pick up, old cutting shears and size and lawnmowers, and he'd refurbish them, and then he would take them to the flea market the week later and sell them, pick them up for a quarter, sell them for $100 type of thing.
Wow.
He was incredible that way. And anyways, I picked up my daughter, and my daughter smelled like his shop. Because as a kid, I was over at my grandparents' house every weekend because I wanted to work in the shop with Grandpa. So we were building lawnmowers, and even though I was doing nothing, I was just being, a shyster, but to me, back then, I was helping Grandpa with the lawnmowers and cleaning grass off of them and wiping them down. And in the meantime, he's doing all the hard stuff, rebuilding the engines and everything. So my daughter had this odd smell of my grandfather's shop that was like a mixture of oil, gasoline, grease, old lawn clippings, a very particular odor. And my daughter reeked of this. I checked her diaper. It was clean, but I couldn't get the smell out. So I said, and my ex-wife was like, "What do you smell?" And I said, "Pick her up, smell her." And she goes, "That's baby powder." I'm like, we get into this debate. I'm like, "You can't smell it?" And she's like, "No, I don't smell anything." So I called up my grandmother a couple days later. I said, "Grandma, you're not going to believe this." And I told her this story. And she goes, "Well, it doesn't surprise me. Your grandfather always wanted a daughter." And they had and they had 3 boys.
Yeah.
And so my grandmother, from then on, because my grandmother's a, religious lady, she said, "You know what? It doesn't surprise me that your grandfather is with your daughter."
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it doesn't surprise me either. That's a wonderful story. I'm sure he's still, even though she's 18, I'm sure he's still watching out for her and comes around. And I think, the olfactory thing, the smells, are pretty easy for discarnate entities to send. This is a real, common thing where you can watch into the kitchen and smell your grandmother's perfume or your grandfather's pipe smoke or as in your situation, all the chemicals and things your grandfather worked with. This is a very common occurrence where an entity who is not physical any longer can somehow affect how the olfactory nerve talks to the brain and send a message of a specific aroma. It's amazing.
Yes, and that's one of the highlights that I will always have, and that is one story that when my daughter gets married and I'm giving that fatherly speech that all dads do. That's one of the things I'm going to mention. I'm sure everybody will be looking at me strange, but know what?
So what?
Yeah, exactly. I really don't care at that point. I really don't. Let's go back about half an hour, just over half an hour here. We were talking about alien abductees and the loneliness they feel from society, family, friends. They don't know where to turn. And you only see less than a fraction of people who are abducted in your area of Toronto.
Oh, yeah. That's true. That's true.
How do you teach people to cope with that loneliness when they don't know where to turn?
Well, I think, as I told you before, I think by the time someone comes to see me, unfortunately, they've probably gone through a pretty psychiatric route. They've probably, taken various medications, under medical direction. They've been through a whole process, and I'm kind of a last resort in a way. So the first thing I do is reassure them that they are okay, that there are that they're not insane, that the experiences that they're talking about are real, that I'm there to listen, and that there are many like-minded people. And so I spend a lot of time, trying to reassure them and undo that feeling of being apart from, being a freak, being different, being all of those things that come into play. Now most experiencers, most abductees, even though they don't always consciously remember it when they first began working with me, most of them have a long history of encounters that began in childhood. And so, you're talking about feelings of isolation and anger too at being taken, at not understanding. All these feelings being pushed down and so these poor people can manifest a lot of neurotic behavior, and understandably so. Not only are they isolated, they can be very paranoid. They can even become agoraphobic, where they have a lot of free-floating anxieties and fears, or they're afraid to go out of the house. They may be afraid to drive a car. They may be afraid to drive at night. So sometimes I actually have to go, to the homes where these dear people live, and work with them a couple of times before I can get them out of the house to come to my clinic. And but reassurance, positive reinforcement, and the release and the exploration and the release of these memories is a incredible process that leads to feelings of self-acceptance, feelings of being in control of your life again. And so this is all part of the work that we do. Not only do we recover the suppressed memories, but we work on all of the other issues, the self-esteem, the feelings of maybe the paranoid feelings, the feelings of isolation. We work on all of that. The anger, we work on all of that. And so, eventually, we're able to get people, a whole lot more functional, God willing. Now, also, almost every experiencer that I've ever worked with suffers from some type of sleep disorder. Now, I think some of it is because they're just plain afraid to go to sleep, because so much stuff goes on, in the near sleep states, or at 3 a.m. or whatever. They're just afraid to go to sleep. And when people don't sleep, they get sick. They can't recycle their body systems. Their health becomes affected. So, unfortunately, some experiencers are so damaged and affected by what they've been through that they're really not very functional in terms that we would equate with having a successful life. A lot of times they're on disability. They're literally unable to work. Their fears are so profound, and they don't sleep. So we often, we work with the sleep issues, and what I have the people that I work with do is make an agreement with the beings that they are interfacing with to allow them to sleep. And you would be amazed at how successful this seemingly simple thing is. They under hypnosis, I have them actually talk to the beings and say, I'm happy to work with you, but I'm a human being and I have to have my sleep. Can you please let me sleep, during the week, and I will be happy to, journey with you or interface with you or communicate with you, on the weekend. And they appear to be listening. The ETs appear to be listening, because once this request is verbalized, it seems that the person is then able to have, fairly normal sleep once we can get them through the fear stuff that they themselves are generating.
I understand that, but there is a human component to that, Lesley. And the fact that we have a lot of wandering souls, because I know before I started having my own experiences, and I've talked to others about this as well, that since I had mine, my depression has kicked up. My anxiety has kicked up.
Mm-hmm.
I have lost a lot more friends than I've gained. I feel that I become more isolated. I feel that I become almost more of a hermit in my life. I know that sounds weird for people listening because I talk to so many people on a nightly basis on this radio show, but this is a relief for me. This is literally my social life. I stared at my phone literally about 30 times today and never got one phone call or message from any of my so-called friends.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get into this field and the more you go down that rabbit hole, the lonelier it becomes for a lot of people.
Well, that certainly can be true. Now, also, I suppose one must recognize that we go through various transitions during our lifetime, and sometimes situations that, such as what you're describing, these feelings of isolation, maybe this is simply a process of shedding the people that you don't need around you, people that have taken your energy, or people that aren't really genuine friends. I think we periodically, just like you go through your closet and throw out stuff that doesn't fit anymore, I think we go through a molting kind of thing where and it's not always pleasant because it seems like, oh my God, there's no one here, but the fact remains you're never alone. You're never alone. We have beings that are right there for us. All we have to do is call out to them. But I understand the legitimate feelings of
I'm not buying that, though, because I've been calling for Carl for over 2 years for my face-to-face encounter, and that jerk keeps standing me up.
Well, maybe Dave, he's not standing you up. You just aren't remembering it. Maybe he's been visiting you in your sleep stages, which is very easy for them to do, and you just simply aren't recalling it.
Well, you know what? I've basically told him, and with my own experiences, I've put it out to the universe a number of times. Whether it works or not, I have no idea, but I don't know where else to turn. That I've literally put it out to the universe that I am no longer accepting any encounters in a dreamlike state.
Okay. All right.
That if you want to see me, I got to be awake. It doesn't matter what time. I have to be physically awake in order to recall, because I'm done with this dream crap. I want the real deal. I want my first experience back, or even, when it was in the forest at 2:00 in the afternoon, or I want the experience while I was doing this show and Carl appeared at the window. They owe it to me. Okay. And that's the message that I put out there. You owe it to me. You owe it to other people to know what is going on. Other people just don't ask for it. So I said, screw it. I'm asking for it.
Well, you can, just as I said, you can make your agreement. You can make that take whatever shape you want. And you're saying, no, I don't want to interface with you during dream states. That doesn't work for me. I want a three-dimensional, physical kind of encounter, and I'm sure you'll get it if you keep putting that out, but it'll happen in their time, and time isn't really real. Time is, space-time is mutable and subjective and plastic. What seems like a long time to you might seem like, 5 minutes to an advanced being who travels through at interstellar distances as fast as the speed of thought. So you just have to be patient and keep putting that out there, and you will have that experience that you seek. I believe that.
I absolutely hope so. They better, because I feel like I'm getting ripped off. I feel like I drew the short stick here, and that's being honest about it. I really feel that, that there is, a little bit of a letdown on their end for a lot of experiencers, not just myself, but a lot of experiencers who say, okay, we've gone this far, I need to know more, because the experience, and like I explained on the show just a few nights ago, the experience becomes like heroin. You want it to happen again. You're not sure of the outcome, but you want it to happen again because the first time you just didn't understand it, but it felt really cool for some unknown reason. And you want it to do it again. You want to get it out there.
Yes.
And you can't. And you can't find that fix.
Well, yes, I have heard that desire for the encounters from many people, and I believe that it will happen absolutely, but we can't seem to always get them to operate on our terrestrial timeline. I think is the issue. They're operating on their own timeline now. You are in a position now where you're so open. I'm sure you're operating at a higher vibration than you were even 2 years ago. So it's very likely that experience will happen for you, in the very near future.
Oh, absolutely.
That's my prediction. And the more crap you cut out of your life, the more stuff you take away that is taking your energy. Sometimes they don't. I think sometimes they don't want to make things more complicated. They are concerned for our intricate, and probably strange to them, human relationships. And I sometimes think they want to just, give you time to, straighten out whatever you're straightening out, to, get any negative influences out of your life, and then they come to you when it's going to be most appropriate for you, when it's going to be to your optimum advantage.
Well, damn it, Carl better show up before I get those T-shirts made up that say "Damn it, Carl."
Absolutely, Carl. Please get off the stick.
Well, in one of the chat rooms, our Keith Andrews, our ET expert around here, he says they just don't owe anyone anything. That is all. And that's true. But you know what? It's human ego that comes into play. I want it to happen. I want it to happen again. Like the other night, I was so excited when I heard those clicking sounds, and I had Keith on the phone, and I'm going through this. I'm thinking, tonight's my night. Here we go. Come on, you bastard, show me, And I'm like, they're not showing. You jerks. You are not showing. They were there, and Keith actually said, I want you to focus your eyes at 20 feet, but take your peripheral vision and look 30. And I did see some blurriness there, and I was trying, but I wanted the full, face to face, but we'll see. We'll see.
Well, maybe you were trying a little too hard. Don't forget that, if you get, excited about something, you start, flooding your body with, chemicals that can inhibit, awareness, things that are part of our ancient brain, like adrenaline that, incite a fight or flee reaction. So even though you could be mentally desiring, the full encounter, you may have sabotaged your own body with your own chemistry.
I know. It's always my fault.
No, it's not your fault.
Always my fault.
It's not. It's just something that can happen. Something that can happen to people who are anxious to have an experience, and they get a little worked up, and then I think maybe you have to be in a receptive frame of mind. Now you would probably say I was completely receptive. Well, I think mentally you were, but maybe your body was keyed up, and you released some adrenaline, and that interfered with the activity of the pineal gland. I'm not sure, but as long as you honestly are sending that request out into the world, out into out into space, sending that request for that experience, and you're honest and your intentions are pure and your ego's out of the way, I have no doubt that it will happen.
You're so positive. You're so positive.
Yeah.
And here I am saying, damn it, Carl. Damn it, show up already.
Yeah.
You know.
It's just they just can't, they just can't be, coerced. They and as I said, I think that they're operating in some other kind of space-time. I've had a lot of people sitting in my chair going, I want it now. I want to see it now. I want everything to happen now. This is, a lot of experiencers, once they've had a taste, as you pointed out earlier, they have a case of the Hardley weights. They just want more and more and more and more. And, whether that turns off the ETs, I'm not sure. I cannot say. But eventually people do get the experiences that they ask for.
Well, I got my fingers crossed. I got my pendulum going. I've got my Zen, my Chi pointed to that area.
Yep.
Well, all I need is Carl and that spaceship to land in my backyard.
Well, I'll have a word with him tonight. I'll see what I can do.
I'll
see what I can do. I got the hotline. I'll see what I can do.
Well, you know what? If you're tapped on in there, make sure he's got a bunch of cold Pepsis on the ship, because I'll be thirsty.
Yes. I will.
Not a problem. Not a problem. We only have about 7 minutes left.
Wow.
I know.
Imagine that.
This has flown by.
It has, Dave.
So much fun. So much
Absolutely.
Fun.
Thank you so much for inviting me by, and we talked about a lot of cool stuff and told some great ghost stories, and I think just the one thing I'd like to put out there is if anyone listening to the show, or if you are an experiencer, or even if you just feel that some maybe suspicious things have happened to you, anything of high strangeness, do not be afraid to reach out to myself or to Dave. Do not think that you are alone or that you will be mocked or laughed at. We are here. We're all here. All the people that work at SOR, all the people involved with Spaced Out Radio, and of course I work with MUFON. No one is going to laugh at you. We're going to take you seriously, and if you need help and want to explore things further, or if you just want to deal with anxiety or anything like that, please do get in touch. And my mobile phone number is 416-454-8041. And you can always reach me through bloomhypnosis.com. And
awesome.
That's that.
You know what? I got a couple of ghost stories to tell you before we call it the night.
Ooh, excellent.
I run a ghost tour here for the local museum to help raise money.
Oh, you do, Dave? How cool.
I do. And you know what? We had to skip the last tour because of the evacuation. Literally, the evacuation happened the day after, or that day, that we were going to do the tour. And so we got back there, and I did the walk around. I'll tell you, every building that we went in was just absolutely active, almost like they were missing us.
I bet.
Yeah, it was the strangest thing. We had a lady who had never been touched by a spirit before get poked on the shoulder, or get zapped with like an energetic shock on her shoulder. We had 2 K2 meters lying face down lying on the ground facing each other. Both meters went straight to red. We put our hands in. Everybody could feel the energy change of this lady that we call Mary in the one room. We go downstairs of the building. I've never been hit with cobwebs before. There's no cobwebs in this building, and 3 of us got hit with the feeling like cobwebs were all over our faces. Oh yeah, that felt almost like ectoplasm. I've heard that before. Yes, I've heard that before. Wow. Yeah. Did you get any EVPs, Dave? We've got people going through their own stuff. We had about 16 people on the tour. And, we broke them up into 2 groups of 8. So I took one group, and my partner, Carrie, she took the other group. And we just kind of rotated buildings every half an hour a building. And, it's funny, though, because before the tour starts, I give this little speech about how this can be kind of dangerous. And there's one spirit that we have in one of the buildings that absolutely hates the tour. He understands it. He understands the purpose of it, considers it a necessary evil. His name is Willie, and I like to acknowledge him because he likes to be acknowledged. And one of the rules that we have is when we go into his section where he is, there's no touching the walls, no leaning against the walls, no photography, no nothing in his area. So now every time I go in there, I leave him a bottle of beer with the twist cap loose. So if he wants to take it off, he can have it, and I leave him a cigarette.
Oh wow!
So neither have moved. I'm waiting for Willie to pop that cap off. He hasn't yet, but one day it'll happen. One day
Indeed, it will. And did you ever, in any of these situations, Dave, where you're going through the local buildings and what have you, do you ever engage in any spirit rescue? In other words, someone who maybe doesn't realize they're dead, you can fill the room with light or bring a relative to come get them, something like that?
Willie is the only one who has asked for help, but he says he'll go when he's ready.
Okay.
And that he'll come out and let us know when he is ready. He's not ready yet. Him and Mary are upstairs in one of the buildings, and I think he has a little crush on Mary, or he feels very protective of Mary, because Mary loves the tour. She loves the tour. She loves to perform. She loves the attention. But, we keep Willie to the side. And it was funny because one of our listeners, Mark, who lives in my area, he came on the tour with his wife and daughter. And he was standing at the doorway to Willie's room, staring into where we were having interaction with Mary. And he could feel Willie standing right behind him. He said the whole doorway was just freezing cold, and it was it was a warm night, and here he was getting the shivers from being cold. I said, well, that's just Willie protecting Mary. So
yes, are they from? Do you think that they are from different timelines, or are they connected? And were they alive during the same basic time period? Did they know each other and have a previous relationship?
Maybe the room that they are in, or the building they are in, we call it the Post House. It was an old hotel along the Gold Rush Trail where a lot of prostitution happened, a lot of gambling, alcoholism, murders, theft. It was, let's face it, it was a lawless land back then when you were going up prospecting for gold.
Yes.
And there's a lot of death and a lot of gold buried in these hills where I am. And, it's one of those things where you just, you kind of grind your teeth a little bit because you're not sure of the timelines. I don't know what we've been able to picture or tentatively figure out is we think Mary was a young prostitute because they used to kidnap girls, 15, 16, 17-year-old girls, to go work. And if the girls fought back or tried to escape, they would kill them.
Yes. So true. That's the feeling I get, that she was that she was involved in that and got caught up in it against her will.
Yes. Yeah. So Willie kind of protects her now.
Okay.
And like I said, he doesn't like the tour. Mary loves the tour. There's a guy downstairs, don't know who the heck he is. Carrie, my fellow investigator, the last time we were in that building, she saw the image of a blue man in there, like a blue-shaped spirit. Like human body shape, but everything was blue, like a dark blue. We haven't figured out him yet. In the main house, we have the little girl, Emily. There's a cat. The cat came back on the tour and actually came through a ghost box this time. So that was good confirmation.
Oh, fantastic. Wow. Excellent. Well, Dave, I wish I was out there and could go on one of your adventures. It would be fantastic, to be sure. And I applaud you for doing that wonderful work, and I hope you can get back on track with another great ghost tour before too long.
Well, anytime you come to BC, the door is open.
I do, Dave. Thank you so much. And I just want to take a moment to thank you personally for this incredible good work that you are doing. You are providing information, you're providing a forum, you are providing a safe place for people who have experienced either, parapsychological phenomena or UFO-related phenomena. You're providing a safe place for exchange of ideas. And that's incredible. And by doing so, you're helping with disclosure. You're helping with the general health of our planet, and that's the best that we can do now. And you're doing an incredible job. Thank you, Dave. We all appreciate everything you do.
Thank you so much, Lesley. You hold on for a couple of minutes. I'm going to wrap this thing up. Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking us in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Tomorrow night on the program, we get into Skinwalkers. We get into E.T. Contact. Movie director and author Jeremy Corbell is going to be joining us 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. I want to thank my team helping me put this together. Everett Thiemer, Eric Markham from The Encounter. Web design, Tim Doyle and Jolene Lammers. Social media, Catherine James. Our great announcer, Bob Davis. Director of Business Development, Kim Gandy. And, of course, Lesley Mitchell Clarke from Contactee and LMC Media. We thank you so much for tuning in. But most of all the thanks goes to you, the listeners, in the chat rooms, out in the stratosphere, on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. You guys are the ones who make this fun, because the way you spread the word, the way you get the message out, that's how we're growing. And together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in exactly 21 hours from now. Thank you so much for being with us. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor here. Monday's coming to a close. Take us home. Good night.